Speaking of lawyers, would you like to call 1-877-SHE-HULK and sue Marvel and Disney Plus for misleading advertising? As it's not Donny Blaze who showed up this episode, but Donnie Blaze? Now, yes, some of you got trolled extra hard this week, but it seems the hits are going to just keep on coming, as I have deduced, I believe, who hired the Wrecking Crew. And keep in mind, this is a guess, as episode 4, today's episode is the last one that I've seen in advance. Now, if you don't want this spoiled for you, I'll put a link down below where you can just skip ahead of this to the next part of the video. But, I mean, I gotta share it, because it just leapt out at me when I rewatched this episode to do my notes for this. So I think that the person who hired the Wrecking Crew is She-Hulk's, one of her dates in this episode, Todd. The evidence? He asks about her impenetrable skin. I mean, he hides it in a bunch of other questions about her powers, but I think he's definitely doing his research. He even asks if it can be pierced maybe by vibranium, and he calls her a specimen. And then, here's the kicker. He's listed in the credits as Todd/Hulk Todd. I mean, how could you be so sloppy, Marvel? Sloppy! I mean, that's amazing. They're like, let's put the big twist in the credits. I can't believe they did that. But you know what? It's better that we learn this now so that we can accept it and internalize it so that we're not horribly devastated when it's not the leader or some other actual Marvel character who shows up later as the boss of the Wrecking Crew. That's hilarious. I don't know. I can't believe that's what they decided to do. I mean, let's see how it pans out in their defense, but whoo boy. All right. But you know who did show up this episode? She-Hulk. Finally, in all her glory. She looked smashing, get it, in her purple dress. And we got some action this episode, and it was incredible. Such good jokes, sexy fun, and again, a little bit of an action sequence. I mean, this is She-Hulk. I loved it. My favorite episode of the 4 so far. Not a lot of Marvel Easter eggs, though, here. The closest is her to-do list. Purple and green highlighters, get it? Those are She-Hulk's colors. Sign up for a Big and Tall membership. Kraft, Sewell, Lee, and Byrne are all She-Hulk comic book talent throughout the years. And then also on her dating profile, she checked her height range as 5'6" to 7'11". Hilarious, I love it. Well, it's not that hilarious. It's cute. It's cute. It's cute. But, you know, that's the Easter eggs that we had, you know, that were comic booky. But this episode is chock full of a different type of Easter egg, real life Easter eggs, and also some really fantastic dialogue, some real gems. And let's start with my favorite jokes from this episode. So I thought it was funny when Jen's friend Nikki was looking at her dating profile and she was like, hetero life is grim. Don't we heteros know it? So I thought that was funny. Donnie Blaze saying he can not only make a rabbit appear, but also a bird. And I was like, oh, he's flipping them the bird. I mean, that was genius. That's a slow burn of a joke. But I was like, I think Donnie Blaze might have missed his calling as a comedian, because it's certainly funnier than he is with magic. And then when Donny Blaze asks Wong what he can do to help during that disaster, and Wong's like, call my lawyer. I was like, that's a great line. And when Wong interrupts Jen's date, which is just not only a funny visual gag, I thought that was really great. But he also tells her, oh, I feel like your dad. Loved it. Although, as for Wong's business card trick, Jimmy Woo did it first, and Jimmy Woo did it better. His practical magic, I think Wong's was not mystical enough. If he wanted to top Jimmy Woo, I was like, whoa, Jimmy Woo's really got one magic trick so far. Back off. But what I loved most of all in this episode, by far, is Madison. Patty Guggenheim really steals the show here. So funny, and it just goes to show how difficult it is to make it in show business that she doesn't have more credits to her name. I hope this gets her a lot of work, because she is so funny. I thought she was great. And speaking of hetero dating, are she and Wongers dating? Oh my goodness, I must have this happen. I love them as a couple. They're amazing. Wongers, can we go get Froyo and talk about The Sopranos? I mean, they're the MCU's When Harry Met Sally. I love them. The end credits when they're hanging out, watching This Is Us, talking about their favorite drinks. I mean, this is an incredible, what is that, their third date? It's an incredible third date. I love it. Also, there's a fun little sketch in the end credits of Madison making her deal with the goat demon Jake. Or is that Mephisto? Ha, it's so fun. Madison is great. I hope Madison sticks around, not just in this show, but I hope she's around with Wong all the time. Maybe just as friends, but I see a spark there of romance. I'm curious. Are you rooting for them as a couple? I love it. I love it! As for real-life Easter eggs, this was nice. There's a very subtle nod, but prominent nod, to when Jen's date is reading one of her books, which is a real book by Roxane Gay, who is not only a successful feminist author, but also a celebrated member of the LGBT community and very, very active on Twitter and very popular on Twitter. But she's written for Marvel Comics. In fact, I believe that during her run, she's the one who put Aneka and Ayo together, or at least highlighted their romance, and also did a lot of work with the Midnight Angels in that armor, all of which you're going to be seeing here in Black Panther 2. So I thought that was really nice to have that in Jen's reading collection. Then, of course, there's the Mystic Castle, an obvious stand-in for the Magic Castle, which is a real-life clubhouse and performance space for magicians in Los Angeles, and it has had some very famous members over the years. However, clearly, a writer on this show went to a pretty lame performance there and thought, wouldn't it be clever, or a clever MCU twist, to have a magician there, desperate to make their show better, dip into real magic. I think it's a great twist. I think that's very clever. I'd be like, good job, writer. I love this suggestion. Let's go with it. So the two storylines for this episode are Wong versus Blaze in court and Jen's dating life. Great A and B storyline. Love it. Then, of course, there's the Titania stinger at the end, so let's discuss all that. So as Jen Walters tells us, everyone loves Wong. Having him as a guest star is like having Twitter armor, although that armor failed last week when Wong also guest starred. But you know what? Who cares? At the end of the day, She-Hulk trended all day long, and that's great for the show, even if, some people weren't too pleased with some of the aspects of last week's episode. Come on, it's great. This is the show. Anyway, Wong wants a cease and desist for a Kamertage washout who's using the sling ring he kept for his lame magic show. Speaking of, using a sling ring, Ned, is this your future? All right, so I'm like, how many people can kind of use a sling ring? This is getting ridiculous. So I love the legalese, though, of Jen pointing out that Wong hasn't done much to protect himself legally. Like when disciples show up to Kamertage, do they sign an NDA, a non-compete, any kind of contract at all? I sense a lot of future billable hours for Jen, unless Kamertage wants to hire in-house counsel. But I thought that was great. I loved it. I love that kind of stuff. Although really, considering how irresponsible both Wong and Stephen Strange have been with their own magic, Wong's anger and talk of taking a sacred oath comes across as very hypocritical. But thankfully, Donnie Blaze doesn't have a good enough lawyer to point this out. His lawyer's not even a very good magician either. I thought it was funny when they were doing really lame magic in the courtroom. But by the way, his lawyer looked so much like Dan Slott, who was the main writer on the recent She-Hulk comic that this show borrows a lot from. But I don't believe it's actually Dan Slott, and he wasn't in the credits. But I was like, he looks so much like Dan Slott. Why didn't they just get Dan Slott? But speaking of being irresponsible, I love that the MCU is addressing on this show the fact that, yes, maybe there should be some restrictions placed on superhumans. General Ross and Tony Stark were right. I mean, I thought they were right during the Civil War movie, but a lot of you didn't. How do you feel now? I mean, there's the Asgardian shapeshifter causing a lot of problems, Donnie Blaze, who in a desperate bid, not even for fame, but just to sell tickets to keep himself in business, is opening up portals to other dimensions and sending in drunk chicks. I mean, that's hilarious. That's hilarious. That's really hilarious. If anyone he could pick to put through the portal. It's a funny take on the magician's assistant, by the way. And I thought Jen made a funny joke about that, about, usually magician's assistants don't even get to talk. But here, I thought all these women, including especially Patty Guggenheim, were very funny. Like that other woman was like, you abandoned my friend in a parking lot in Panoma last week. I don't know, it was great stuff. Great stuff. I like that they were like unwilling to participate after a while. It was great. And calling him on his lame magic. Those roses didn't smell like anything. Hilarious. He couldn't spritz him with some perfume before the show? Luckily, at the end of the episode, Donnie Blaze messes up just enough for a reality check, but not so much that he actually endangers reality. When that demon or little troll came out of the dove's egg, I thought that was so fun. And then when Jen shows up and she asks Wong what she should do, and he says, "Be a Hulk," Oh boy, did she. It was great. It was a great preview, I hope, of what's to come. And again, she looked sensational and incredible. The purple dress was a great choice. It's her color from the comics. She looked so cool in it. She could also still move in it. I just can't compliment this sequence enough. I mean, she looks so cool here. I mean, let's get her in a movie with a bigger budget so we can really have some fun. Loved it. On that note, let's discuss Jen's very complicated dating life and that Jen doesn't have one while She-Hulk is very popular. Again, these episodes are just too short to really get into this properly, but clearly Jen has self-confidence issues. She uses her corporate headshot as her dating profile pic, but for She-Hulk, she's willing to go for the sexy candid. You can even see the difference in how she acts during the actual dates. As She-Hulk, she has self-confidence. She feels sexy, so she acts sexy. I thought it was interesting that she first told Nikki she didn't want to have a dating profile as She-Hulk because she already has to be She-Hulk all the time at work. And I think the show is definitely moving in the direction of Jen deciding to abandon her human self and just be She-Hulk all the time, which is something that the recent comic really addressed. And it was also a thing in the original, very, very popular She-Hulk run. She was She-Hulk all the time. And I think, that would, and for different reasons than why Bruce is, Smart Hulk. So I think it's great. I just don't think they have the room on this show to address it properly. But then, even though at first she doesn't want to have a dating profile as She-Hulk, she has a really horrible date as Jen, which I have to tell you, I think like 99% of women would tell you that this scene was very well written and hilarious because it was very, very real. So she caves and she makes this She-Hulk profile. I also liked when they said, you have no new matches. And she's like, why is that an alert? Maybe because they want you to work on your profile. That should have been at least the thing underneath, like maybe you want to play with your profile a little bit. So She-Hulk gets a ton of matches, and she jokes how demoralizing for Jen. But then the morning after, with that hot doctor who takes one look at the real Jen and leaves, it really is demoralizing for Jen. I don't get it. If she feels sexier as She-Hulk, why doesn't she try to mirror just some of the characteristics to maintain as Jen? I honestly feel that if she just blew out her hair as Jen, she's so close to She-Hulk. I think she would solve a lot of her problems. And I know a lot of you are like, well, why should she have to do that? Well, I think that's a very good question, and I think something that Jen has to answer. Maybe she should think about the kind of guy she's looking for, and if that's really a match for her, because she admits she's being very shallow in this episode. But again, this show doesn't have the time to explore this properly. Her date, though, her second date was great, though, because it was like right out of the classic She-Hulk comics. But the fun factor was undercut by this exploration of self-confidence issues and the way women are. And to be fair, she was doing the same kind of shallow thing to guys, but, I think that kind of undercut the fun a little bit. But if they had the time to do this properly, I don't think that would be the case. It's like if you have a light and fun under 30-minute runtime, you can't have the problems of an hour-long drama. It just is almost impossible to pull off. Finally, and this was also great, Titania herself doesn't show up, she is suing She-Hulk. Why? Because she beat Jen Walters to trademarking She-Hulk. How embarrassing for Jen as a lawyer not to jump on that. This is so the recent She-Hulk comics and so this show. I love it. And again, it's ripped from real life, as there are a lot of digital squatters doing this very type of thing. So I just think it's fantastic. I can't wait. And hopefully Titania will actually show up next week. So I love this episode. As I said, I think it's the best yet, and it showcases the unique and dynamic qualities a She-Hulk story can have, and what separates her from other MCU characters. My only complaints this week are the episodes are still way too short. I don't think they're making the most of Jen breaking the fourth wall. Like, it's just not funny enough. I mean, it's cute, but we're competing with Ryan Reynolds' Deadpool. She needs to have better jokes. And again, guys are going to complain about the dating storyline because both the loser and the catch are really stereotypical, the way they're drawn in very broad strokes. So even though I feel that there's some reality to these depictions, I think that it would be a much better idea to let guys in on the joke so they don't feel like this isn't a show for them. And that would cast a wider net, which would bring in a bigger audience, although we don't know the audience for this show just yet. But we need as big an audience as possible so we can get a bigger budget and have more She-Hulk VFX. So that's the only change I would have made. I would have brought guys in on the joke on the dating stuff so that they could laugh too, instead of feeling they were being laughed at. Although maybe you didn't feel you were being laughed at. I'd be curious how you felt about the dating scenes. So what do you think of this episode? Do you want Wongers and Madison to be a couple like I do? And how will you feel if that is the person? Be careful with spoilers. Be careful looking down below if you don't want to have any spoilers. But how would you feel if that is the person behind the wrecking crew? All right, share those thoughts down below. Subscribe today. And of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.